And 10 TV News HD at 5 starts with breaking news tonight out of Pittsburgh. The University of Pittsburgh Medical Center says one person was killed, 7 injured. 2,000 people in that town of Henryville, Indiana, and it's basically wiped out. Numerous houses destroyed, roofs torn off, lots of debris, as you can see. We have reports of 3 to 6 people have been killed in that area, but they're just now getting out and surveying the damage and getting a sense of just how destructive this was, how extensive the damage is. So that's just the beginning of some of the images that are coming from Indiana, this storm system that moved through there just a short time ago. Some people, though, look at these storms as something thrilling. Here's what one storm chaser caught. Look at that image. Storm chaser Chad Hinton shot that video of a funnel cloud in Borden, Indiana. New at 5, a bomb threat closed the Athens campus of a West Virginia college this afternoon. Concord University evacuated its entire student body, faculty, and staff. It's a lot, and we're learning more tonight about the young lives lost. This young man, Demetrius Hewlin, died this afternoon. His family describes him as a happy young man who loved life, his family, and his friends. Russell King died early today. He was studying alternative energy and was described as a sociable kid who got along well with people. And Daniel Parmador, who died yesterday, was an aspiring computer repairman, loved computers. His family called him Danny and said he was a bright young boy who had a bright future ahead of him. Our Chopper 10 has the action from the air, and 10 TV's Ashley Berry is live on the phone with what we have learned this hour. Ashley?
And Andrea Cambern. Coming up tonight on First News at 5, parenting teenagers can be a difficult responsibility.
On 10 TV Eyewitness News, we're going to take you there. Every Friday at 5:30, we're traveling to a different town. Getting off the beaten path with road-tested 10 TV news anchors Jerry Revish and Andrea Cambern.
On the back, knee, pass. Getting active on a daily basis.
Helps you keep your balance when your world is spinning.
Kids, make fitness fun when you commit to be fit. Wow.
Let's make Columbus the #1 bike city in America.
You'll burn calories.
You'll get healthy.
You'll save money, and you'll have fun. 2 trips a month by 2012. It's gonna be something. Jack Hanna's Into the Wild Lights. It'll be something you'll never forget. Jack Hanna's Into the Wild Lights. It'll be something you'll never forget.
You know, the directors, the producers, our technical crews, the guys out in the field, the truck operators. There's so many people. It is truly a team, and there's really interesting areas of opportunity within a news station. In addition to all those people, you also have all the marketing people that are so important. Now we have an entire web newsroom, the web division in the newsroom that handles nothing but just the web. I mean, it's producing a newscast around the clock on the web. So we are truly a team, and a great team at that. But if you think you have your sights set on one thing, I would encourage you to check out all the different opportunities. And again, sometimes it's just getting yourself a foot in the door, because the more valuable you are by learning everybody's jobs and not, pigeonhole yourself to one thing. I think that that's really important. There's been a lot of people who've walked in the door in one role and ended up in a much different role that they hoped to be in, or maybe not, and just kind of learned as they got inside the building, because there are a lot of fascinating things happening there for sure. Love it, love it, love it, love it. It's what I love best about it is that every day is different. That you are afforded the opportunity of kind of like going to school, but not going to school, because you are forced to learn a little bit about a lot of things that maybe you never were interested in before. And it just keeps you interested and keeps you engaged, keeps you growing, which is, I've been in many jobs where I've been looking at my watch like this, like, oh gosh, I can't get out of here. Or what flu can I come up with today to not have to go to work? And I mean, seriously, everybody in here can relate to that. What a crime it is to waste our lives doing something we don't love. And I just truly believe that. Life's too short. If you're not spending your time doing something you love or enjoy or get something back from, I would not. I certainly would switch gears at any point. Now, I will tell you that We take our jobs very seriously, what we do. We get a lot of input from viewers, and people want to know more about stories, and that's a very rewarding thing. But we get a lot of calls from the newsroom about my hair. And yes, I got some work to do before 5 o'clock today. But I was freaked out about that. I'm like, what do you mean people called about my hair? Don't they hear these important stories we're sharing? Why on earth would they call about? You know what? The reality is, in the TV news business, it is a visual medium. And then people invite you into their house, and they have opinions. And I can tell you about this one letter I got from this lady one day. And there was nothing about me that she liked. From the top of my head to, if she could see the toenail polish that I was wearing, I'm sure she didn't like that color. And she decided that she wanted to write it in this letter and send it to me. Now, as a journalist, you try to become a little thick-skinned because you understand that you can't please everybody. Not everybody's going to love you and welcome you in and embrace you. But as I said, there was nothing that she liked about me. And she wrote it all down and sent it to me. And I read it, and as a journalist with a thick skin, I was trying to be a little tough. I was like, okay. And I read this whole thing, and I got all upset. And, just imagine going to your mailbox, and there'd be some letter from some guy going, I'm not liking the facial hair, and why do you wear brown? Brown is not a good color. And those tennis shoes, you'd be like, say what? Wouldn't you? Or if somebody said, I don't like that blonde hair, get rid of that blonde hair, or why don't you cut your hair? Or purple? As a person, as a human being, as a woman with hormones, you get a little upset. So I read this whole letter, and there was an amazing thing there. At the bottom of that letter was her address. Well, that never happens. Not her email address, her address. So I should have taken my own advice that I'm always giving out with my Commit to Be Fit and my health reporting. Don't get stressed. Get the stress out. Find a way to get the stress out. It's toxic. It'll kill you. Go do something. I should have just put that letter away, forgotten about it, gone for a run, taken a yoga class, taken a deep breath, something. But oh no, there was her address. So I decided to write her back. And I wrote, what a luxury it must be for you to sit on your cozy couch and criticize people who are just doing their job. I'm sorry you hate my hair, you don't like the pink jacket, my glasses, my voice, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for your constructive criticism. I'm going to work on it. Hopefully you'll continue to watch. I sealed that letter up, and I drove by the post office, and I put it in, and I cried the whole way home. I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have written her back. And I told my husband the whole story. He's like, forget about it. It's spilled milk. You didn't write anything that bad. It's gone, forget about it, and remember all the kind things that people say. Oh, the way Central Ohio is just warm and welcoming. Forget about it. All right, so I did. Well, I don't know, 6 months later, I'm sitting on the couch with my husband, and I don't know if I'm watching Katie Couric or Diane Sawyer or who, and I look up and I said, what was she thinking when she got dressed this morning? That blouse does not match that jacket, and who's doing her hair? My husband looks over at me and he says, what a luxury it must be for you to sit on your cozy couch and criticize people. And I was like, oh! At that moment, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I am that woman. Would I ever write a letter? Never in a million years. Would I ever call someone and criticize them? Never. But it put things in perspective for me. And gentlemen, you are not going to understand this at all. So just zone out for a second. But ladies, you will agree with me. For women, checking each other out, whether it be our hair, or our shoes, or our glasses, or our lipstick, or whatever it is sport. It is. It's like guys watch race cars around with what is that? Or can sit there all day on the couch and watch golf or football till what? For women, we checked each other out, and it is sport. So, based on that, it helped me accept that people are going to criticize and they're going to call and all that stuff, and I learned to de-stress about it. But you have to know, getting into this, it's a public medium, whether it's TV or radio or print or whatever, broadcast, whatever you do, all eyes are on you. And you want that, right? But sometimes not so much. Anyway, I share that because it's a funny story and I laugh about it all the time, but I did learn to just channel that and take the much more positive things to heart and understand how the rest of the stuff works. And I also learned one other lesson I'll share with you, and then I'll open it up to questions. When I got this job at Channel 10, it was my dream job. Like I said, I never thought in a million years it would happen. So I was so excited about getting the job that I was even more fearful of losing it. I was a young, new, fresh broadcaster with no experience, nothing like you guys have. Nothing. I had nothing. So what I was doing was emulating other people I saw, other people that I respected. I was copying, I was learning, I was gleaning things from people, and I was trying to develop my own way of communicating. And one night something happened. So I was so worried about slipping up or fumbling or stumbling or mispronouncing a word, or it's that I was so articulate about every word and so buttoned up. And then one night I was taping what was my health source reports. Where when I was working during the day, not anchoring the 11 o'clock, I would tape this health source report and leave it for the editors to use into 11 o'clock. And after I was through taping it, I always do something that I thought was a little bit funny, so that they'd have something to laugh about later in the day. Oh, what you do now? You remember this, Dale? Oh, gosh. So one day I did what I thought was funny, and I went home, and then it aired. Well, when it aired that night at 11 o'clock, generally what happens is there's like a health source graphic behind me, and I'd be standing at the wall, and the anchors would toss to it, and they'd say, Andrea Cambern's here with the latest on osteoporosis. Andrea, they're live, I'm on tape, and I'd say, yes, this great new drug treating osteoporosis, and we'd go into my thing. Well, that night I didn't talk about osteoporosis. They tossed to me, and I stood at my little wall, and I danced. It was worse than Elaine on Seinfeld dance. It was like not a kind of dance that you do with your friends on a crazy weekend night out. No, this was like no music, no rhythm, no nothing. The most embarrassing thing. Well, they went back to the anchors who were live, and I remember this. Dave Kaler was like, and Nancy's face was like this. We'll be right back. So they went to the break, and everybody kind of gathered, and I heard the director's track the next day. They were laughing. So the next day, my friends at WNCI Radio called me in the morning and wake me up. Hey, we want to put you on the radio. You want to talk about your health source report? I thought, doesn't sound like WNCI morning zoo fare, but sure. They said, oh, you didn't see it last night, did you? And I went, oh, no. They said, well, you weren't talking, you were dancing. Oh my gosh, I've never gotten up, out of bed, pantyhose on, clothes on, boom, to the station faster. I walked into the station, all my good friends at Channel 10 started to dance. Well, if we get 4 calls to the newsroom, it means probably 4,000 people are thinking the same thing, but they're not callers to the newsroom. If we get 8 calls on something, we've really hit a nerve, whether it's good or bad. We do more stories like that. We don't touch that. We make sure we're more in the middle. That night, that school night, 11:23 at night, we got 70 calls to the newsroom. 70. 70 people had to stumble for the light on the nightstand, find their glasses, look up the phone number, wait on hold. 70 people, and every single one wanted to see it. Could have gone the other way. I'd be back in the desert.
But the editor got fired.
Yes.
What?
Well.
For putting it up?
Yes. Well, I didn't get fired. But I could have. I mean, the news director said, don't forget, every time you're in front of a camera, it can always get on the air. You have got to remember that any time it can get on the air. And we've learned that lesson. The moral to the story, and I'll get to the editor, the moral to the story is that at that moment, I realized that we share so much death and destruction, so much bad news all the time. We're so buttoned up sometimes. We have to just, this crime and punishment, blah, 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 that it is okay, certainly, to laugh at ourselves and to be ourselves. And after that aired, it was like a light bulb went on, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to be a Diane Sawyer or Peter Kirk. I'm going to be my own person. And if it flies, it flies. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think there's some great truth in being yourself in this. And it allowed me to unbutton a little and be myself and swat a gnat on the set or say what's on my mind, if sometimes not so good. But it just, at that moment, I just realized that, you know what, people are okay with that, and they kind of appreciate seeing who you really are, your true colors. Now, the editor, yes, the editor did not survive that, but not because that was the first time. There had been other times when things weren't edited out or edited properly or got on the air that shouldn't have, but that was kind of the final straw. And you have to take that stuff seriously. I mean, we rely on that editor is the person that crafts the way everything comes together, the storytelling, the pictures, everything comes together. And sometimes all of us get a little complacent, no matter what job we have, as I said. But when you step back and realize that that's the image you're leaving people with, and it's got your name on it, it's really, really important. So I hated to see that happen, but it's just a good reminder that you can't do stuff in front of the camera that maybe you don't want. So I don't get to dance anymore, except once in a while. All right, I'm going to open it up to questions. You guys tell me anything you want to know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where did you get started? What station did you start at?
I started at the CBS affiliate in Phoenix. It's a big station in a big market. I grew up in Scottsdale in the Phoenix area, and so that was home for me, and I was able to start there. But an interesting thing happened after I was there for a while. I knew that I still needed to learn a bunch more. I was in this big market with all these people with a lot of experience. So I left that big station and I went to Tucson, Arizona, which was a tiny station for an anchor reporter job where I could hone my skills on both instead of just being a fill-in anchor and reporting. So I could really work hard. So I left my home, went to this tiny station and learned, and then from there got the job here in Channel 10. So 3 stations and all. And I can tell you that this business can be very brutal. And people in this business can be very brutal. There was a lot of backstabbing and everybody jockeying for the same job. And I thought when I come to Columbus, it was the same way at this station. I don't know if this business, I'm cut out for this business. But when I came here, I found it wasn't that way. And there's this great camaraderie and family atmosphere, and everybody wants everybody to succeed. So you just have to look till you find the right home, find a place where you're comfortable. Because there's nothing worse than working in an environment where it's kind of toxic or combative.
I'm sure you probably get this a lot, but when I was a younger boy, I used to miss the 5 and 6 o'clock news because I had basketball, baseball, whatever it may be. So my parents used to tell me I couldn't stay up to watch the news, I can't do this, can't do that.
Right.
Well, I'd stay up and I'd want to watch it, I was a little boy. I used to love watching it on TV.
How old are you now?
I mean, I'm 24 now.
Oh, great, so you're a toddler.
Exactly. So I just want to know, I know that you did the 5, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock news and all that. What do you think was like the highlight of your career?
People ask me what was the one great story or what was the most meaningful, and I can tell you that I've been able to travel a lot and do some really fun, fascinating things. Some cover hurricanes and cover interesting people and all. But the stories that I will take away and that are most meaningful for me are the ones that are most meaningful for you. The stories that impact people's lives in a way that you never really think too much about. Like, for example, my focus is health. I did a story on a fertility treatment, and it's just another story, another treatment, another breakthrough, and fertility treatments. And I got a call from a woman afterwards, and she said, Andrea, my husband and I have been trying to start a family. We've tried every treatment, blah, blah, blah. We're out of money. We're out of emotional reserves. But I heard you saying something about this treatment. Can you give me the doctor's name? Can you tell me where it is? So I did, and I didn't give it much thought. And then 6 months later, I got a call from this woman. She said, I know you won't remember me. I called you. I asked you about this. She said, I just want you to know that we found the doctor, we had the treatment, and we're expecting. And I was like, oh. And the world stopped for me at that moment because the day-to-dayness of a job became significant. And I realized, would she have found that treatment on her own, gone on to have a family? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But here, just by communicating, just by sharing this, it impacted her life in a profound way. So those are the stories that mean the most to me. Or someone who will say, I wasn't, having these exams for breast cancer, and then I heard you harping on me, and all right, I had it done, and they discovered I have cancer, but they caught it early enough that I'm going to be fine. Those are the ones that are most meaningful for me, without a doubt. And it's just a good reminder of the great opportunity in this business that we have. It's fun putting TV together and fun putting stories together, but it also can impact people in really great ways. So I'm glad you've watched all these years. I'm gonna miss you. It's been really a fun run.
Do you ever have a story that you feel strongly about that you did not want to report on?
I am loud in the newsroom in meetings about us covering too much crime and punishment. And I question it every night because I don't think it reflects the community. I don't think it reflects what Central Ohio is about. There are so many better stories about interesting people doing good things, things that impact people in positive ways, but yet 9 out of 10 days we're leading with crime, a murder, a drug deal, a shooting, just horrific stuff. And I always question it. It's been a losing battle. It's just been a losing battle to me. Once in a while we'll get those good stories in there in the second block, third block, maybe. But those are the kind of stories I don't like to report. I mean, obviously we need to report the news of the day, but we don't have to report them in such a sensational way. You know, the managers will tell you that research shows that's what people tune in for. They may say they want the noble, good stories about people, but bottom line is, we want to get eyeballs to the set, and sadly, they believe that that's the way it is. I don't necessarily believe that, but you go with the flow and you try to continue to push for stories that you like.
What do you think was like the biggest challenge, like the biggest hurdle of your career?
Getting that first opportunity for me was. You guys are taking the right steps to kind of eliminate that because you're getting the experience that you need. That was the biggest, but it may be the biggest for you as well. It may be just getting in that one spot and proving yourself, because then you can prove yourself. Then you've been given an opportunity and let it go. But just convincing someone was the hardest for me, and it may be something for you too. I can tell you too. I was kind of gullible, and I always believed everybody's good and always right in the world, and everybody told the truth and all. And one of the first stories I did was a real eye-opener for me. It was about a young girl. She was very involved in her church. She was very involved in school, and she was kidnapped. There were candlelight vigils for her. They couldn't find her, and it was my story, and I spent time with the family, and this was my story. And then about a week into the story, my news director came up to me and he said, could she have been making this whole thing up? What would you? I'm like, no way. This family is pure and true and good. And sure enough, it turns out she didn't get kidnapped. She and her boyfriend ran off. They were doing drugs. They robbed from his work, and it was a completely different story. Completely different story. And that happened very early in my career, and it could have ended my career right then. But fortunately, she duped everybody else. All the newspapers, everybody was telling the same story. But that was a good lesson for me to learn as a journalist, that you have got to ask a million questions. Ask a million questions and never take anything for surface value. So that was hard. That was in Arizona.
Can you talk about the value of internships?
Absolutely. I think that is one of the most important things you can do. Because once you immerse yourself in a newsroom, as you know, it's a whole different ballgame, is it not? Is it not a whole different, completely different thing? And it not only shows you what real life is in the day of a life, but it also opens you up to possibilities. I like doing this. Oh, I didn't realize this job entailed so much of this. It's a great way for you to figure out who you are, what you want, what you don't want, and to get some great hands-on experience. We have had many an intern go from being an intern to a full-time paid position. That leap. But there is a night and day intern. There is an intern who comes, sits down, waits for somebody to tell them what to do. Do you want to do this? Can I show you this? And sits there and surfs the internet. Then there's the intern that jumps in. Can I go out on that story? Can I write that story for you? Can I work the assignment desk? Show me what you're doing. How are you editing this? That gets in our face and really, 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 really wants to learn. And those are the people, and it just happens. You just see them rising. You know they're going to be stars. You know they're going to go on to have a great career because they're already going above and beyond. Take that opportunity, and if you can get your in that room as an intern, it's the most valuable thing. And not only that, you make contacts there that you have for life. And sadly, sometimes in this business, it's who you know and the timing of things. When you can say, I hear you have an opening, can you take my tape into that news director? Or the relationships you've built with the people at the station, they'll call you and say, oh, we have a great opening here, get me something, I'll get it to the person. So there's no downside to that. The only downside is you realize, this isn't what I want to do, and I don't like this environment, and it's too stressful or too deadline oriented or not creative enough or whatever, but that will be very, very valuable. So plug away to try to make that happen. Who else?
Do you have anything on your broadcaster bucket list that you never got to do that you always wanted to?
Broadcaster's bucket list. I think what I've been able to do has far exceeded anything I ever thought I would be able to do. But I would have loved to have been able to do longer format stories. I would have loved to have done more interviews. I would have loved to have like a talk show and really looked into issues and people and places and showcase all those things that a 30-minute newscast doesn't get to. So if there's anything that I wish that I had maybe pursued, it would have been something like that, because I thrive on that. I love that. We just started doing longer format interviews in this new show that we just introduced called 10 TV Presents, where we're encouraged to come up with an idea, and it's prime time, it's not newscast, and do some longer things. So I'm going to get a couple in before I go, but it's just been great. I just interviewed Jack Hanna. We're going to do a long story on him. Not the Jack Hanna that you see in his khakis and his hat standing at the zoo, but who is this man, and how did he end up here, and what has he accomplished, and who is he, and what makes him tick, So those kinds of things are really, I love to do.
Can you talk about, over the past 20 years, how reporting the news has changed as news is more celebrity driven now, and how that was to deal with?
I don't know that it has changed that much. I think there's much more celebrity-driven programming. I think the news, we do include it, when there's something that's very topical and everybody's talking about it and stuff. So I don't know that it has made its way so much into mainstream newscasting as much. It's certainly a hot topic for entertainment-type magazine format programming. There is this great infatuation with celebrities, and it's compounded now, I think, because we see them immediately on the internet. We don't have to wait for a program, it's immediately broadcast on YouTube or on Twitter, or it's just everywhere. You can't kind of walk away from it. But I think that we've always had that infatuation way back in the day. I just think we didn't have that instantaneous way of sharing it. So I think it's just, we're seeing much more of it, but I'm not sure that it's made its way mainstream into the news unless there's a tragedy associated with it or something like that. But I think it's always been there. I think just now the method in which we can get that info quickly is impacting that.
If I could point something out, much of what Andrea's talked about today is your internships, making connections, and having courage, which is basically where you started the entire story, being able to work against the naysayers, to work against adversity. But something that you've done, and I saw probably maybe if not your first newscast, maybe your second or third newscast after coming to Columbus, and I saw something immediately in what you were doing that I said, now, this is going to be interesting to see how long she lasts. And I am so pleased to say that I've been able to watch you not only last on 10 TV in these 20 years, but you have led the industry in doing some things on camera that prior to 20 years ago, you rarely saw anybody do. And I'm talking about having life and animation. Understanding as you talk, you're not a stick, you're not an inanimate object. That by bringing energy to what you say and using small motions, you're able to emphasize and utilize this medium in a way that, for the most part, was neglected prior to those 20 years. And now when you watch people on the other network affiliates here in town, you see those little subtle animation points of both the male and female on-camera talent, and you're actually starting to see this more on networks as well. So it's been a real pleasure to see you kind of lead the parade.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't know if that was deliberate or not, but I appreciate it, and I can tell you that there was a pivotal point in my career that gave me kind of the okay to do that. And this was my second TV station in Tucson, where I was still very green and still learning. And a tour came through the station. And they stopped in the newsroom, and then they moved on. And one man kind of stayed behind, and he made a point of coming up to my desk. And he said to me, he said, "Just be yourself." And at first I was a little put off. I'm like, who is this man and why? He said, "I'm just a viewer and I watch, and just be yourself." And something struck me at that moment that said, because you're scared to sit, the first time I sat in front of a TV, oh my gosh, it was like broadcast news. I was like, and you don't know who you want to be, but I just felt it worked best for me to just be myself. And it wasn't someone who'd come up through the ranks or gone to journalism school or whatever. It was just of someone who hoped to be able to communicate. And that's, at the end of the day, it's about communicating and connecting with people, not about how well you read or what. It's just making that connection with people. So I think that if you're true to yourself and you just, I didn't know either, because it was very different for a while. And I'm glad I've had a job for 20 years, so it's worked out well. But I think that the bottom line is just be yourself and see where that carries you.
You've been here for 20 years. Why are you leaving us?
No, I don't want to go. Don't make me go. It's been a very difficult decision. When we came here 20 years ago, it was for my job. I was just getting married. We just got married the same month we moved here. My husband came without a job. We didn't know a soul in Columbus. We didn't know a street. We didn't know a person. Anything. But he came for my job, so it was a big leap of faith. And now he's got a job opportunity in California, where he grew up, where his family is. And so it's time for me to return the favor. So, yeah, thanks. I could do this forever. I love what we do. We love Columbus. He loves it too. It's not about that, but you can't do it forever. It's like it's someone had the analogy. It's like pulling off a Band-Aid. You either do it little by little, knowing that eventually you're going to go, or you just rip it off and it hurts like hell, but you move on. So it was a very difficult decision, but I'm so grateful for what I had, and now he has to be the priority, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Everybody's like, oh, you must have something lined up. What are you going to do? What are you lined up? I'm like, I got nothing. I have nothing. I truly, for the first time in my life, don't know what I'm going to do. But I'm going to take my watch off, no deadlines. I'm going to breathe a little bit, put my toes in the sand, and figure out what the next chapter will be. I remember this one fondly. I encourage you, anybody that tells you, oh, it's terrible, you make life what you want it to be. And this job, especially now, with the connection that we have around the world to so many people in an instant, it's just so gratifying and impacting lives, because that's really what it is, and connecting with people. So I just wish you the best. Thanks for having me.
There's one story I tell all the time. You know what I'm going to say, Andrea. Everyone I meet who knows that I know Andrea says, have you ever seen her with a bad day? Just like you see her now, she's like this all the time, on air, off air, whatever. But there's one time I saw her really down and depressed. We're in the newsroom, news studio, waiting to do a cut-in. And they were about to deliver the O.J. Simpson verdict. And it came down, he was found not guilty. I've never seen this woman so despondent. Like, really?
I'm like, if I've been watching the same thing that everybody else has been watching for the last 6 months or however long it was.
Right. But definitely been a pleasure knowing you. I'm going to miss you. And next time you in the city, come back and see us.
I will. Thank you. I may have like dreads and my clothes here. I don't know. I'm really better. Thank you all.